Well, welcome back to the Sports on the Bay podcast. Today, we're talking about something that impacts every athlete, every team, and every family in youth sports, but often doesn't get enough attention: coaching. We're talking about how coaches communicate, connect, and influence young athletes. Our guest today is Danny Locklear, head strength and conditioning coach at D1 Crofton. Danny earned his bachelor's degree in exercise science from Frostburg State University and his master's degree in exercise science and coaching from Concordia University, Irvine. He's passionate about helping athletes improve their performance while also developing confidence, discipline, and a long-term love for movement and sport. What I appreciate about Danny's approach is that he talks about athletic development as a journey and not just a destination. Danny, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey there. Thank you for having me. Super excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think to start things off, it's really helpful for everyone to understand your background, what attracted you to youth sports and training, and where your career path has led you.
Yeah, I think the easy, obvious, probably repetitive answer that you get in a lot of strength and conditioning coaches is I was an athlete. And at one point I was introduced to training, right? And it was different for me than working out, right? Understanding the concept that doing this in a journey or in a span of time was supposed to improve my performance and not just some broad, like, you do this because you're supposed to, really dropped the quarter in my head. Like, oh, I could be better at the thing I already love doing, which is, playing sports or competing through training. And that's what kind of piqued my interest in pursuing it educationally at Frostburg State University. And that's what also made me fall in love with the idea that training doesn't have to be point A to point B. It is an ongoing thing. And point B changes all the time, right? Point A is always kind of like where you start and how you feel when you start. But point B changes from the beginning of the season to the end of the season, or it changes from 16 years old to 26 years old. And that's what just prompted me to keep jumping into strength and conditioning. So that's where I landed.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you think about youth sports today, do you feel like we've become too focused on performance and not enough on how we're coaching kids?
I do think that the demand for higher performance for youth athletes is higher, right? And you can see that over the last 20 years perpetuate down. Like, obviously, take a look at professional sports, right? Like, professional sports really impacted and shaped the way that collegiate athletics operates now. And then collegiate athletics really shaped the model for high school athletics, and then high school to middle school to elementary. And it's really interesting and fascinating at the same time to see, like, you've got middle school athletes doing this sort of academy or developmental model that is scaled downward from college or high school athletics. And it's kind of confusing in some ways, right? You're looking at middle school athletes and questioning, why are they doing things that professional athletes or college athletes are doing? It's not necessarily wrong. It's just, yes, there is a higher demand on performance, so to speak, at a super young age.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start because over the last, I would say, even decade, we've seen massive growth in private training, performance facilities, year-round athletic development opportunities. But growth doesn't always guarantee quality. So let's talk about what you're seeing from the front lines.
I mean, it's interesting because at one point the myth or the lore out there was have kids stay away from strength training. Have them don't lift weights with kids. That's dangerous, right? And so we debunked that, and we got to the point where we said, hey, all this science and all this data says that kids should be training. They should be lifting weights, right? But lifting weights and training don't always go hand in hand, right? So what I see now in this field is strength and conditioning or sports performance is literally everywhere, right? I see everyone and anyone doing it, from private sector sports performance facilities or schools or head sport coaches or just anybody saying, well, we can do that. We can get some cones. We can get some ladders. We can get some dumbbells. And we know how to work out. We know what it takes. So I see sports performance all over the place, especially in this geographic area in Anne Arundel County. The words performance are all over the place. right? And that creates kind of a confusing map for parents or athletes to sort through, right? Like if everyone offers sports performance or strength and conditioning, how do you know what is high quality? How do you know what's optimal? So it's almost like, well, you can get a cheeseburger at Wendy's or you can get a cheeseburger at McDonald's, you
Mhm.
can get one at Burger King. They're all the same, right? And that's not true.
Mhm.
That's very, very much not true. And I'm not trying to diminish anybody when I say this, but there are people out there who have just jumped into the field of strength and conditioning and sports performance and haven't gone through the education, haven't gone through the years of development it takes to be a good strength and conditioning coach and
Mhm.
kind of just jump into it.
Yeah. And I think that's really important for parents. I mean, are there certain questions parents should be asking those organizations? And maybe we need a part two where you kind of come back and show us what a strong strength and conditioning program looks like.
Yeah. I think before they ask, I'm speaking to parents here, before you ask
Hmm.
what the program offers, parents really have to be educated. I'm saying parents of kids, let's say 15 and under. What is the
Hmm.
purpose of my kid's time with them? Right. So, I work a lot with high school athletes. Not every single high school athlete is interested in playing varsity sports. Not every high school athlete is interested in going on to play at the collegiate level. So sometimes I work with
Hmm.
kids who are just athletic enough to be on the team and participate, and that's fine, right?
Hmm.
The world doesn't inherently need more high-level Division 1 athletes, right? I'm a big proponent that the
Hmm.
world needs more really kind, patient, strong people who might be really good at shooting a lacrosse ball or catching a football, right?
Hmm.
So one of the questions parents ought to ask is like, what is the purpose of my son or daughter being with this coach? From there, that's where you map out how that coach structures a session. What is the tools or what's the skill set that the coach employs to get my kid better at X, Y, and Z? And
Hmm.
does the kid enjoy it? I got to be honest with you. It really is very difficult to work with kids that don't enjoy training. And as much as we want to
Hmm.
go the whole, no pain, no gain, the times where I was crying and sweating and bleeding is when I got the most work done. Listen, man, like kids today will check out mentally before they check out physically. And if you as a
Hmm.
coach are not doing at part of your job to try and make it not necessarily fun, but just worth it for the kid to be there, you're missing the mark. So I think
Hmm.
parents have to be aware of their kids' like emotions and that, and they have to be aware that maybe the point is not for them to get super fast so they can play varsity, so they can play Division 3 sports. Maybe it's just this is a good path for my kid to learn how to handle challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point. I feel like I do talk to a lot of, and this is obviously in like the second, third, fourth grade age range, parents that say, you know what, my son or daughter isn't really into sports right now, but actually likes running or loves being active. Strength and conditioning doesn't necessarily have to also be correlated to a sport that they're doing too. It could just be to have movement in their week
Yeah.
and create healthy beings. And so I
Yeah.
think that's a really interesting perspective that maybe a parent who is thinking that hasn't even thought about going that route. And so that's really helpful, I think, as well.
Yeah.
One thing that you and I talked about when we first connected over the phone was just the different aspects of coaching kids and as they grow and mature. And you were really humble about a lot of lessons coaching kids throughout the years. And there's things I would have done differently. And so let's kind of switch gears a little bit, but how is coaching a 10-year-old different from coaching a high school or pre-college athlete?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes right back to what I just said, like what's the purpose of my time with that athlete?
Hmm.
I can't tell you how many times I myself have missed the mark as a coach where I've been working with a group of 9, 10, 11 year olds and they're 9, 10, 11-year-old boys, their brain is just scanning opportunities to be goofy and funny. And of course, when they're
Hmm.
with their friends, like that's the best opportunity to do so. And because I'm tired or because I'm on my fifth or sixth session that day, my bandwidth for patience and for instruction is low. And so I snap at them and I'm like, hey, come on, let's be focused. Let's get serious. You're not taking this seriously. And they're 9 or 10
Mhm.
years old. Right. So I have to make sure that they at that age have a positive association with training. Like it should be something where they get in the car and after their session with Coach Danny, they get to say, Mom, I went over hurdles today and I did cone drills and Coach Danny taught me how to do. And that experience should drive everything else that we do because they had a valuable, exciting time. At the high school level or maybe a collegiate level, that shouldn't change. But the drive goes from like gamified cone drills into, hey, man, you crushed our power development session today, and it's going to show up later when you go play pickup basketball or summer league lacrosse. Like I can tell you, coaching at my college strength and conditioning group 3, 4 years ago at API, we
Mhm.
had a blast. Like Fridays were our day where we did like really hard conditioning, but we also gamified it. And I trained those kids hard. Like I know they got sweat equity out of it. But the purpose wasn't to kick their
Mhm.
tail and make them sore, tired, and sweaty. Anybody can do that. The point was for them to get
Mhm.
something to dig deep and find out like, whoa, I can tackle that. And I handled something hard today. And they still walked out having fun. They still walked out feeling way better about themselves than when they walked in the door. And I always go back to like the point is to give them a positive experience. Whether we do that with cones and hurdles or we do that with a barbell and we do that with, you know, battle ropes, that doesn't matter. The point is the positive experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I've even noticed over the past couple of years with my boys is, well, my husband and I talk about this a lot, but we talk about like return on time. Like time is so scarce these days. And when you're at these practices, like you want your kids to get some value out of it. It's amazing how we've been in different situations, some very positive and some not so, but it really can dictate the child's desire to continue with that sport. It can take one bad practice or one bad experience and alter a 4, 5, 6 year old's ability to want to keep doing that. And it can take a little bit to get them back into wanting to try again. And I think it's so important. And you touched on this, but people that you have coaching your kids, like, please know that there are volunteer coaches out there and they're great people. And we're so grateful that they do that. But it is really important to make sure your kids are in the right environment because it can alter the course of which direction they want to go. We talk a little bit about how two coaches can run the exact same session and create something completely different for the athlete. What's more important for young athletes, the workout itself or how it's delivered?
I think if you define young athlete, let's say 10 years old to, or maybe like 8 years old to like 17, right? They're still very impressionable. Not that a college athlete isn't, but they're very impressionable. They're very emotional. They have their whole day can be influenced by that interaction, right? I think the delivery matters.
Mhm.
I talk with a lot of parents and I talk with some athletes too who are very quick to point out like, well, that wasn't hard, or this isn't hard, right? Or I just feel like
Mhm.
it's really easy. And at the end of the day, exercise selection or program design, like there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat is the old phrase. Shout out John Wright from Frostburg State University who taught me that. And so, like, what you do to get an athlete better definitely matters. But if I try to get my athletes better through velocity based training and Olympic weightlifting, and somebody else gets them better through powerlifting, that all kind of works. The reason kids bounce around from program to program or trainer to trainer or whomever is the experience they have, right? And how it's delivered. And the influence that we as coaches have on those kids matters so much, right? Like, I know that I've been doing this for not as long as many coaches, but I
Mhm.
know I've had a handful of experiences already where kids have come up to me and said like, I was struggling with X, Y, and Z. And looking forward to my team training session with you or whatever, like it helped me understand I can get through stuff. or I can navigate what it feels like to be not good enough. And that matters so much more to me than saying that we got his squat numbers up or his deadlift numbers up, right?
Hmm.
I think it goes back to what I said earlier, like the world doesn't need more Division 1 athletes. The world needs people who are kind and strong and patient and gentle. And maybe they're really good at throwing a football or scoring goals. So I think for young athletes, especially, those little guys and little girls, how it's delivered is going to really influence how they feel safe around adults, how they feel
Hmm.
comfortable expressing their interests or their confusion points. If an athlete is not comfortable telling you, Coach Danny, I don't understand, can you walk through that again? You're not doing your job as a coach. When I
Hmm.
teach and when I coach, and every athlete or student I've had is going to know this, I say, does that make sense? Makes sense probably 60 times a session. That's the opportunity for the kid to be like, Coach, I don't know what that means. Can you walk that back? Can you help me? And I want to make sure that I'm giving them space and time to have ownership of the session, but also space and time to be who they are. And if they're having a tough time with something, whether that's emotionally or intellectually or physically, we can navigate that. We can work through it, right?
Hmm.
That's my opinion on that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think one thing too we see with younger athletes is how you actually teach the technical skills matters
Yeah.
for young kids. I often feel that adults talk at kids a lot and don't necessarily show the skill themselves. The way you're talking to athletes, making sure that they're comprehending the things that you're saying so that they
Yep.
can execute. And also, that alone will build confidence in their abilities. And it's just so important as coaches to make sure that we are at the level, and that when they're in high school, that might look different. But when we're coaching younger athletes, we have to make sure we're coaching them at the level that they're at.
Yeah.
And meeting their needs as well. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
No, I mean, like I learned a while ago when you start out as a sports performance coach, right? You think, oh, I'm learning about this in college and I'm learning about this framework about coaching college athletes and adults. So I went and got my first job coaching adults and athletes and kids and was super excited about that and was not super thrilled about doing our junior class with the 7 to 9 year olds because they were low
Hmm.
function, they were low comprehension, they were low attention, and it took so much out of me as a coach. But that's when I realized, like, oh man, like I have such a cool opportunity to have fun doing my job and get them better at the same time. Also, recognizing at that age, like 7 to 10 years old, the threshold for performance, like they're going to get marginally better through sprinting, jumping,
Hmm.
landing, changing direction, but they're going to get better whatever you do with them, right? Like they're
Hmm.
sponges. And when we talk about, you just mentioned like it's so important for a kid to comprehend. If you're mean and you're super intense and you're really gruff about the way you coach, they're not going to ask you questions. They're not going to be interested and be like, well, coach, can you check my form? How does this help me play soccer? If you are engaging with
Hmm.
them and you are letting them participate in the session, not just the drills, they're going to ask more questions. They're going to kind of gather near you and want to be around you. And it's like cats. Like cats are skittish, kind of leave me alone animals. But
Hmm.
if you just show the cat,
Hmm.
like, I'm okay to be around, they're going to want to be around you more. They're going to try to figure you out. They're going to try to get an idea of, well, what is Coach Danny like? Let me get to know him. And guess what? They're going to want to
Hmm.
perform better. They're going to want to zero in on this because now this is engaging for them. It's the same approach a lot of teachers use with like subjects like math that aren't super thrilling for kids. The more engaging you can make
Hmm.
it, the better chance they're going to have at grasping the concepts and performing better.
Right, right, absolutely. So before we wrap up, I do want to just, if you're comfortable, just talking a little bit about D1 training at Crofton.
Yeah. Uh, D1 Training is a strength and conditioning sports performance business,
Mhm.
and they're nationwide. We're going to be the first one here in Maryland, and I'm continuing my mission, which is positively impact the athletes in Anne Arundel County through strength and conditioning.
Mhm.
It's a big factor for me to continue getting to be Coach Danny. Like, that's an identity I take very seriously and I value because I know the influence and impact I get to have in this position is serious,
Mhm.
you know? So what we will be focusing on is obviously improving athletic performance through our training, but we also have a pretty high adult market that wants to explore what it means to be athletic through training again. So we are ready for a lot of people to come in and check us out. We're ready for a lot of people to feel what it's like to train at a high level and kind of learn about themselves. It matters how we get them better. That's definitely a big factor
Mhm.
for me, but it's also a big factor for me and my coaches to make sure that we make those kids, make these people feel good when they walk out the door, right? That
Right,
matters.
exactly. And you're doing small group and individual training options for
Yes.
families?
So
Okay.
we have our prep, which is our like high school pre-collegiate sessions. We have our rookie sessions, which are the little guys. We have our developmental classes, which is our middle school athletes. We have our adult
Mhm.
classes. So the model is people can come in, participate in these sessions as a group, or we can schedule small group training, which is a bit more semi-private. Let's say you've got, a lacrosse team that wants to do 3 or 4 guys training together. And then we also personal training as well.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we will definitely link that as well so people can access that information and get in contact with you. Well, this has been such a valuable conversation because at the end of the day, youth sports are much more than athletic performance. They're about relationships, confidence, growth, and helping kids become the best version of themselves. But before we let you go, we always finish with the same question here. What is one thing from your childhood sports experience that still sticks with you today?
So I didn't have like a ton of high victory moments. I didn't have a ton of moments where, I got in the backseat of the van and thought like I was the man. I scored 5 goals today and we won because of me. I was an okay athlete and that's about it. One thing I
Mhm.
can say that sticks with me from youth athletics from, elementary, middle school, high school is I remember what it was like feeling left out in some cases. And when
Mhm.
you get to be part of a team and everybody on that team values you, appreciates your contribution. Like that moment that felt that, it just stuck. And I was like, this is the best. I love being a part of this. I love putting my all into that and then feeling like it's going to come back because my teammates are doing the same. So that's what's always kind of gravitate or helped me gravitate towards team athletics and being a part of a coaching team. I always try to be the best teammate that I can. And if I fall short of that, I want my teammates to pump me up and be like, hey, come on, we need you. So that's always been the thing that
Mhm.
sticks out to me the most.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Danny, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective. And thank you to everyone listening to the Sports on the Bay podcast. We will see you next time. Thank you,
Thank you.
Danny.